Some years ago, I was asked what kind of module I'd make if I got into designing Eurorack. Without hesitation, I said a MIDI controllable CV Quantizer. Basically, something like the IntelliGel microscale that allowed me to select notes from a keyboard in real time rather than buttons on the front panel. Well, it's a good thing I didn't mortgage my house to start a Eurorack business, because while I wasn't looking, Oz from Expert Sleepers put all the functions I had in mind into one of the 80-plus algorithms in the Disting Mk4, and by extension, the Disting EX. And today, I'm going to show you a couple of fun things you can do with it. The Quantizer algorithm for this function is A6. Our CV comes in through the X port, and the quantized CV comes out of A. The B output gives us a trigger on note change. Y input can either be trigger or transpose, but we won't be using that today. The Z knob and corresponding input allow us to select scale modes, but as we're using MIDI to do that, we'll leave that unpatched as well. For a sound source, we'll start with a Mutable Instruments Platts in modal resonator mode with a bit of reverb. And for the moment, I've got a sine LFO as a CV source. This algorithm has 7 adjustable parameters, 0 through 6, and we're just going to skip right up to parameter 6, which is MIDI mode. There are 3 MIDI modes, the first being off, which means we're quantizing to one of the preset scales, currently a chromatic scale. Now let's switch to MIDI mode 1. This is what you might call note class or note name mode, and this is how most CV quantizers work by default. If I select a C on my MIDI keyboard, the CV gets quantized to a C in whatever octave range it happens to be in. Likewise, if I play a C minor 7th chord, we'll get a C minor 7 arpeggio as our LFO does its thing. But what's really appealing to me, and one of the features I imagined for my dream MIDI CV quantizer, is mode 2, which limits quantization to only the specific notes we select, and that allows us to create more complex chords and harmonies, specifying what root notes we want in the lower register, for example, and limiting our upper partials to the register where they're going to make the most musical sense. And just like an arpeggiator in latch mode, we can keep adding notes to our chord as long as at least one note is being held down. Then when you take your hands off the keyboard, there's your quantization set, and the next key you press starts a new one. Now we can start playing our modular like a keyboard instrument while still maintaining some aspect of the randomness and chaos that gives modular so much of its character and appeal. To demonstrate this, let's replace the LFO with the CV out from Permutations, Grayscale's brilliant take on Tom Whitwell's Music Thing modular Turing machine. I'll clock it with Pam's new workout and crank up the tempo just so that we can hear a wide range of pitches in a minimal amount of time. If, like me, you're as much a keyboard player as a modular composer, this is a really fun way to bridge these two disciplines. Another fun performance feature is the fact that you can also control the algorithm's 7 parameters with MIDI. For example, controller 1, the mod wheel, is mapped to input attenuation. So while we've got permutations sending out CV over a 6-volt range, we can use the mod wheel to limit that range in real time. That glitchy effect is a result of using the trigger on note change output. You could add a sample and hold unit after the disting to mitigate that somewhat, but it's kind of an interesting effect in its own way. I'll leave the other parameters for you to play with on your own, but clearly there's a lot of potential there. Now this is a lot of fun, but we're still using just one voice. I started thinking about how to create some polyphony using this MIDI quantization feature. I believe the Disting EX has a dual quantizer mode which can give you 2 channels of quantization to the same MIDI input, but unfortunately, I don't have one. What I have done is multed the quantized CV out into a Synthetech E102 quad temporal shifter, which is a nifty little shift register module. That's in turn controlling 4 analog oscillators, each with a triangle output going into an IntelliGel Korgasmatron 2 filter with a bit of resonance and distortion added. There are a couple of other modulators in play here, but you get the basics. From this one CV source, I'm going to try to create a kind of choral accompaniment for our Platts resonator. pretty robust performance patch with real-time quantization. I hope you enjoyed that, and feel free to post comments or questions if you have them. Have fun with it, and I'll see you next time.